Get your vitamin D right here with me and get excited about your life.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. You are tuned into the Vitamin D with Dawn Dai podcast, and I'm your host, Dawn Dai. Here to get you excited about your life so that you can live life on purpose and for purpose. And if this is your first time tuning in, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Let me just tell you right now, vitamin D, well, it's a pun off my name. My name is Dawn, which means the sun. And so vitamin D, you get that from the sun. So I'm here to shed light into your life. And I do that with inspirational insights and conversations with celebrities and everyday people like you and me. And I always tell people, this podcast is all about inspiration and motivation and, just feeling good, right? But here's the key. We keep it real here. So we touch on things that don't make us feel so good, but we know that it is for the betterment of us because we got to see all parts of it. And if we're going to talk about shedding the light, that means we have to shed it on the good and the bad. Because if you want to be better and you want to do better, you have to be able to see better, right? That's like how we establish the vision for our lives, the vision for what's to come. Shoot, that's how we see. So that's how this podcast came to be. You can catch it everywhere as far as on all platforms you listen to your favorite podcast. We also have a YouTube page, so a lot of the interviews and inspirational insights and the conversations can be found there at Dawn Dai Speaks. Also, I want to encourage you that if you are an avid listener to this podcast, or if this is your first time and you're like, oh, I'm digging it, please tell somebody to tell somebody and tell somebody. Look, this is my dream. And I'm busting my butt so that we can get the subscriber list up so we can make that money so I can keep this going, because in my vision, the world is going to know vitamin D. But I can't do this without you and me. Like, we're working together on this, okay? And it's manifesting. I know it's possible. In fact, usually this is where I'm saying, without further ado, go to that dose of vitamin D. But I'm going to get straight to it. Because since we're talking about vitamin D, I was talking to my baby last night. Now, I don't have any kids, but when I'm talking about my baby, my nephews, I have two nephews, LJ, and I call the other my Jerry Berry, James and Jeremy, but LJ and Jerry Berry. LJ was my first baby. And so now he's 14. So, I'm adjusting to the, it's not like he ignores me, but, I don't get the call back like I usually get back, But it's interesting that when you stay open to receive those relationships that they evolve. But I say all that to say, we've been playing tag, or I guess I've been hounding him, waiting for him to call me back. And if you're a mother or a proud auntie or uncle, or at least auntie, I can speak for myself. Dumb hype, because my nephew decided to call me. But anyway, let me get to it. So I was talking to my baby last night. And he said, auntie, he came out of nowhere with this. He was like, this idea just came to mind that somebody was like, Dawn Dai, that's your auntie? And he was like, yeah, because you're going to be really famous one day. And I just said, thank you so much, nephew, for speaking life over me. And I said, I receive it. Shandala, I receive it in the name. And I guess, usually I get all emotional and sentimental. But this part, it was just so amazing to see that my babies believe in me. And I feel like if you're going after your dream, like that's how a parent it should be. It should be something that everybody recognizes. And it isn't an affirmation that somebody's giving you. It's more like a confirmation. But that felt really good. Because it's going to happen. And I guess if you checked out a previous episode I put up, it was entitled, Do You Really Want It? And I was talking about kind of like everything of how I got to vitamin D right now, and when we have to really make the decision about what we want in our life. I feel like oftentimes, like, we say we want something, we say we want to do something, but then when we look in the mirror, the person looking back at us isn't matching the things that we said. Now, what are the traditional excuses? You're waiting for somebody else to give you an opportunity. You're waiting for this opportunity to present itself to you. Or you're just waiting for the perfect time to start. And I can't reiterate this enough. The perfect time is to start now. The perfect time for the opportunity is for you to create one. And build your door. Create your seat at the table. And you do it by taking one step in front of the other, putting one foot in front of the other. Which leads me to my next thing. I talked about this as well on previous episodes about this whole pruning process and how just people and things are just falling away and just getting into a space where I'm not holding on to things. And I guess I want that for you for this season that we're stepping into, not just season of literally of the weather, but this season of life. Like, I feel like we need to know the seasons that we're in. Like, are you in the planting season? Are you in the kneading season of your soil? Are you in the watering season? And are you in the reaping seasons of your life? And that goes to whatever your vision was, whether it's your career, whether it's your relationship, whether it's your kids, whether it's a goal, whether it's school. I don't care what it is, but understanding what that season is, but making it apparent about what it is you want. So as I was thinking about that pruning process, I know that my dreams are manifesting. That's why I'm not so gung-ho about things that aren't working, because as I've matured and just lived a little bit more, ain't nobody trying to carry nothing else they ain't already got to carry. And what that means is that if it's not serving in the betterment of me, if it's not serving in the betterment of you, peace. And it's no shade. It's just because literally when we're asking for more in life, when we're asking to be elevated, when we're asking to be higher, you realize that it's harder to get higher when you're carrying so much that's weighing you down. And that's how I know what I know with going through the pruning process. And not tripping over relationships that are dissolving, not tripping on opportunities that I felt or thought that were mine that seems as if they're fleeting, because what's mine is mine, because I see what God is doing, because I see that I'm putting one foot in front of the other and my dreams are manifesting. When I get the confirmation from my 14-year-old nephew that lives in Michigan, talking about his auntie and saying that he was like, "Auntie, you gonna be real big." Amen. Amen. And I think also, I just want to say this too, like when we're asking ourselves, do we really want it, right? And we're looking at this pruning process. You got a vision board? I got a vision board. I think oftentimes what kind of derails us a little bit is that we call them vision boards, but I feel like they're more of like timeline boards. I was talking to my good friend Shelly. You may have heard me talk about her on the previous episode, but we were sitting on the phone a couple of days ago and I said, why is it that people call these vision boards but feeling like they need to have a new board every year? I said, that's not a vision board. That's a timeline board. I created my vision board on the last one I did. Well, I didn't do one last year, so it'll be 2 years come this December, October, because I did it after the moon, or when the new moon was coming about. And, they say when you do stuff on a new moon, that allows for things to grow and a lot of prosperity. Like when I was younger, my mother used to always trim my sister and our hair according to the moon. And, that was the whole logic behind that. But anyway, I digress. I'm saying all that to say is that I'm realizing even this 1.5 years later, last time I did the vision board, things are still manifesting. And perhaps sometimes that we put too much pressure thinking that it has to happen at a certain time. Chill. Be easy. You didn't say you want to see it. You said the vision. So the pieces have to come together. I'm going to say this right now. One of the things that I have on my vision board is to be a women in media and a women of color syndicated honoree. That's what I'm doing with this podcast. I know, Dawn, who are you to be this bold to say this? I know, I am. And I want to just encourage you to be that bold. But as I told you on this podcast of how I'm learning me and understanding different facets and seeing different sides of me, I'm working on this level of vulnerability. I've always been that person that somebody says, Dawn, you're strong. Dawn, you handle it. It's kind of like that thing, you got to get it done because it's me. But I realized that while I thought that this whole vulnerability of opening up, this area of coming, like I don't have anything figured out, I realized that there's actually strength in that. And I had to tap into a Brene Brown because I told God, I said, I want to be that. I'm telling myself, I want to be that, to be open to more things. Because when you're vulnerable, you allow yourself to be open to receive, to release, and also to connect. So what did I say? To receive, to release, and to connect, because it's just open. And it's just like anything. When you allow things to be open, you can roll right through it. And one area that I think that that my vulnerability has always, I guess, been open with is my dreams. I've always been bold about saying what I want, whether it's moving across the country, whether it's asking for what I feel I deserve, or acknowledging or requesting what it is I'm worth. But I look at other areas in my life where I feel as though vulnerability could really support that. Whether it's when I first moved in my apartment, I said by the age of 30, I said, I'm going to have my own apartment to myself. Well, I got in that apartment. That apartment didn't have any furniture. So I literally slept on the floor on the comforter. And some people are like, well, hey, Dawn, why didn't you just say anything? I guess for me, a part of it was like, well, I put myself in that situation, so I need to figure it out. But what happens is that when you don't allow or you don't share with people what's going on, you don't leave room for people to support. So as I was thinking about Brene Brown, she describes vulnerability as the uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure, hence open, right? And now, just so that I'm following along with my words, if we're talking about vitamin D and shedding light, things have to be open so the light can get in. Hello, Dawn Dai. Okay. And she describes it as this unstable feeling we get when we step out of our comfort zone or do something that forces us to loosen control. Did you catch it? Let me go again. Unstable feeling we get when we step out of our comfort zone or do something that forces us to loosen control. I see how that could have been better when it comes to my relationships, both intimate and platonic. I see how that can even be better with myself, putting myself out there, being more daring. But I think the reason, or what has prevented, I would say, that got in the way is when we talk about these myths of thinking about vulnerability. Like, one, a lot of folks feel like it's weakness, and that's usually like maybe you've experienced it about telling somebody first that you like them, or, being the one that's going in for the kiss, or perhaps even asking a loved one of like how their health is doing. Asking somebody out to dinner, I don't care what it is, you put yourself out on Front Street, right? But it's only there can you seek to get your answers when we talk about being out of the comfort zone. When you talk about, and I say use this loosely about putting yourself on blast, but it's putting yourself out there to be seen. Catch it. Another one. Now this, I'm going to go into this one because I feel like this would be me. I don't do vulnerability. Now, I don't know if I ever said like I don't do it, but it's the thing of probably in the sense of not opening up and asking for help and support, that kind of shut down some doors. And also it backfired because it was almost a sense that I wasn't connecting. And I think that's one of the things that's so important when we talk about vulnerability. You got to allow yourself to be seen. And it's a weight that you carry when you're constantly trying to protect yourself or cover yourself. Take it off. Take it off. I said this before and I'm going to say it again. Gabby said on Red Table Talk, nobody can beat you with your own truth. What's your truth? Then it says the third one here, we can go at it alone. Like I said, the second one, but probably the third one. It's always this thing like I can handle it. Now, I think a lot of it has to do with nurture and nature. And I say that because I grew up in a single parent household. Like my mother was the epitome of strength that I seen, because here she is. She raised 2 kids. She had a 3-year-old and a 3-month-old. And then your husband dies. And then a year or 2 after that, you battle cancer. So this whole idea of having to take care of yourself and having to get done, how in a sense, how that vulnerability started doing me that I mentioned in step 2 or the second one, is that I didn't make room for somebody to come support. And that's why I want you to make room. Half the times we're going after these dreams thinking we have to do it alone or being in this sense of having to have all the control of it. Well, what did I say that vulnerability is? Vulnerability is you do something that forces you to loosen control. There's the things like when you think about a company, you think about playing a position, when you think about connecting, you have to open it up so somebody can step in. Now, I know I think I'm a bad mama jamma, and in many retrospects, I consider myself a god, but I realize that other things have been placed in front so that can support me on my way. So when we go with this I can do it alone aspect, you're literally putting up a wall and not letting anyone in. You're literally shutting down that communication. We are here to communicate. Heck, the very thing, 80% of your body is based on the communication of 2 hydrogen molecules and 1 oxygen. Because we're made 80% of water. So at what point do we step into life feeling like we got to stop communicating? Heck, let me tell you something right now. Just when I was talking to Pruna, I'm going to get real. I'm not going to call it names, but I'm just going to keep it real. I want to say friends, but I'm like, I don't know. Do you call it a friendship? You know, sometimes we hold on to friendships just because. And it's just like, we got to get to a point of normalizing the fact that you outgrow people. And there's no animosity. And making it seem like it's okay. But I say that because we talk about this whole realms of communication. And while I'm talking about communication with self and open vulnerability, I want to just give you an example of what happens when you block off communication. And you got to be aware to see it. So like I was saying, somebody I went to college with, when I say it was like my best friends, like my brother, like, you know, like that was like, it was us. And I don't know, I can't call it what happened over the years, but what I will say is this, is that we got to a point, it's just even a bump in the heads, and everybody's not a great communicator, and I get that. I understand that. Like, I pride myself on being a fantastic communicator. That's my strength. That is my gift. That's where it's at. And this friend, or I should say former friend, doesn't really have the means to communicate like that. But what I realize is that when we hit our bout, I don't want to force anything. And that's what I want to encourage with you as I'm talking about these dreams, as we talk about these timeline boards, as we talk about this communication relationship. We're at a headbutt. I'm saying, do you want to talk about it? You haven't called me back. I'm not carrying it. If you're not picking up the phone line to receive me, there's nothing to be sent. So what I'm saying is, doesn't mean that I'm not open, but you have to get to a point with yourself of where you have to stand on your own feet about your integrity with self. Would I have liked to resolve this relationship? Yeah, but if you're not ready, you're not ready. And we see that in so many cases of even relationships of people that you with. We have to get out of this whole idea of trying to force stuff. Now, that part is not vulnerability. Vulnerability is saying what it is that you want, being open to receive, but understanding that, loosening that control, that if it doesn't go your way, 1, you're going to be okay. And 2, you're going to keep it moving. Because even with the communication don't start with yourself. You don't see these hydrogen molecules in your body be like, all right, I'm not banging with oxygen today. No, they work together. That's part of the survival. And it's like, as we come together, we have to work together. But as I'm talking about this friend, I can't force you to want to communicate. And I realize it's just going back to the promise and the vision, because if you're there, you're there. And if it works, it works. But if you aren't stepping up to the plate to do it, there's nothing that can be done here. And I think that's what I think is one of the key things that I want to get across of when we're talking about vulnerability and opening up for the whole point of it all. Because I knew reaching out to him that perhaps he wouldn't have anything to say, but I said, let me put myself on Front Street, because I know the healing that I want to do with myself. So let me just say this again. When we're talking about not using your vulnerability, do you know how you do anything is how you'll do everything? I tell Jeremiah all this all the time. If I am stopping my vulnerability of not being able to communicate with somebody else outside of me, do you understand how that backfires and hits me, where actually vulnerability will do me? Where I won't even know, I won't even understand. In a sense, I won't even effectively communicate because I won't even know what I'm feeling. Because we are made of these materials and these molecules that are meant to communicate. Hence why they always say you got to go within for your dreams, huh? But here's the thing. If it doesn't flow, it can't go. So yeah, this was just about Dawn walking in the fact, reaffirming the aspect of dreams. 2, understanding how big vulnerability plays a factor in that. Being open to see it, being open to understand what it is you want. And really understanding that the greater the risk, the greater the reward. Are you ready to be vulnerable with yourself? Are you really ready to sit down and be honest with yourself about what you really want? If you're frustrated, I bet there's some miscommunication going on. I think it's time to have a conversation with yourself. I think it's time to be real and understand what it is that you want and what it is that you don't want. Because yet again, when it comes down to do you really want it, when you're saying the things that you want in your life and when you're looking in the mirror and the person looking back at you isn't matching up, then what is it? Well, you can say, hey, Dawn, I want to be this multimillionaire. Hey, Dawn, I want to own my own media company. What do they say? Faith without works is dead. You don't have to wait for it to materialize. See, so you think it's so you are. You have to already be it. I'm not waiting for the $1 million to come into my account for me to start acting like it. I'm already imagining the lifestyle that I want, the type of trips that I'm taking, the reach that I'm going to have, just everything. It's already here. But it takes a level of vulnerability to even reach outside of that, to even see outside of that. So perhaps it's also blanketed it with a level of grace. Have your vulnerability, but then blanket it with grace. Grace to understand the season that you are in your life right now. Grace to understand that you have to open up in order for things to come in. Grace to relieve yourself of this whole idea that you don't have to hold on or hoard things to make sure that it's yours. You know, when it's real, you don't have to hold on to it. It's going to come back. I experienced that a couple times, even with working with individuals, just coming up in radio. People not wanting me to be involved with different things because it wasn't aligned with what they were doing, or perhaps my attention was going elsewhere. But it's like when you really love on somebody, when you really care about somebody, when you truly want the best, I don't have to hold on to you. I don't have to hold you on like a leash. Because one, if you're meant to be there, you'll be there. And if it's meant to be, it's going to work out. So that's where I want to work at. That's where I want to be at. Because this whole thing about self-sabotaging, it's real. I almost self-sabotaged myself the other day. You know how I told you that I study at the Groundlings? So you've heard me say this before. The Groundlings is one of the best things I ever did in my life. When I talk about vulnerability, I'm exposing myself every time that I get in front of there with performers. But the whole idea of the whole yes and. So in the program, I finished the core track, but now we get into a point where it's like the performance track. This is when it's time for the big girls. And when I say big girls, I mean for the girls to get on stage. And then perhaps if you're granted, because of your talent and because of your resources as far as relationships, you may be granted to be a spot. But even before that, I had to take this class. It was online through Zoom, and we were doing monologues. And do you know, they had threw a suggestion out there, and I think I was unfamiliar, but the first time my webcam got disconnected. And the second time, because I got uncomfortable and they threw out the suggestion, I didn't know that I cut it off and I wasn't going to go back in. And I'm in this whole motion right now where I'm trying to figure out my level of discernment. Like, what's fear and when am I sensing like something is for me and not for me? And I think we have to go through our levels of meditation to understand and to hear ourselves, because we got to be in tune. Okay. So I was sitting there and I was like, I ain't supposed to be in this class, but not realizing it was fear because everybody in that class is better than me. And I say that, and I use that loosely. I say that because it's based on experience. But guess what? If you're trying to be a 10 and you're a 5, you better hang out with the 10s, right? So that's why I'm in the class. But I was like, Dawn, this is what you want. Dawn, this is what you've always dreamed of to be a performer. Dawn, Groundlings, Dawn, improv is helping you with your podcast. Dawn, improv, Groundlings is helping you with your voiceovers auditions. Dawn, improv, Groundlings are helping you with different TV shows. Dawn, improv, Groundlings is helping you with your everyday life and communication. You gonna tell me you gonna self-sabotage? What's wrong with you? But why do I feel like I'm not the only person that's ever did that? Huh? What you self-sabotaging with? Huh? What you wasting time on? Huh? How did you strike yourself out of an opportunity? Huh? Well, I'm so grateful. The teacher of the class, she emailed me. She said, hey, it's okay. I said something like, oh, my router or something got jacked up. But I got back on there and I showed up for myself. Now, one of the things that I had to congratulate Dawn or give a pat on the back is because I came back. But I also didn't look at myself with disgust. That's why I said that even with that whole pillar of vulnerability, how you have to blanket it with grace. One, I had to be honest with myself. I said, Dawn, were you feeling a little insecure? I know. Remember, this is a big thing because this is Dawn being strong. Dawn, you know. Dawn, you got this. But guess what? You got to check yourself before you wreck yourself, Dawn. I must have got my tail back on there. And I want to encourage you. So I experienced it too, of not always feeling as confident, not always being the top person in the room. And I want to make sure that I get in more situations like that. So I did my monologue. Was it all together? No. And I was able to be open with it. I was like, oh my gosh, I felt so uncomfortable. Oh my gosh, I felt so naked in the level of support. I had people coming up, oh, that's what happened to me when I wrote my first monologue. But here's the key. That's what happens when you're vulnerable. Vulnerability allows for that communication to take place. Vulnerability allows for us to attract and connect to say, oh, I'm just like you. You just like me. We can do this together. That's the connecting. So when I decided to come forth and be like, okay, this is how I really felt. And as I was saying it, I felt so icky because I was like, oh, I didn't know. But it felt good. And it's going to make me better because I'm going to be great. And if I'm taking this to the moon and the stars, this is only the beginning of the level of vulnerability that needs to be seen. So I want to make sure that you understand that it has to be the same with you. Go out there and get it for yourself. Go out there and do it for you because you deserve that. And I want more for you. Okay? My nephew believes in me. He said, I'm going to be a big star. Yeah, both of my babies. So I want to know if you're going to believe in yourself. Hey, listen, you don't have to answer and tell me that. You ain't even got to scream at the screen or the speaker. You just look at the mirror and you tell me, what do you see? And maybe that's a good way to motivate and inspire yourself. Do you see what I see? I see greatness. I see abundance. I see blessings over your life, for your life, and throughout your life. All right, well, that's it for your dose of vitamin D. I want to encourage you to make sure you tell your friends about this podcast. You can catch it wherever you get your favorite podcast. Also, make sure you head over to the YouTube channel and check out at Dawn Dai Speaks to check out the video of this podcast, other interviews or conversations, as well as some quick doses, some inspirational insights and snippets, okay? And we got to get the subscriber list up because, listen, vitamin D needs to go worldwide. It's not needed. It will. Mark my word. Watch it. Wait on it. I speak life. But just so we can get it going, tell a friend and tell their friend and tell their friends and then some. Also, if you want some vitamin D on the go and you just want to keep up with my life, you can follow me on all social media at Dawn Dai Speaks. And what else is there? Oh, you want to be a guest? Or would you perhaps like to submit an advice letter where I can give you some advice? I want to encourage you to email me, VitaminD@DawnDaiSpeaks.com. All right? Well, I'm about to get out of here. And I want you to know that I'm in the business of making dreams come true. And I damn sure ain't going to forget about mine. So until next time, I want you to always remember, you are your greatest asset.